Hello, replay viewers, and welcome to this Conquer Worry podcast. I am Jay Coulter. You are watching a very special Conquer Worry Scope. We are going to record a podcast today with Tracy Shawn. Tracy is going to talk about some of the things she has done with Conquer Worry in the past and some of her more popular blog posts and the types of responses that we receive from that. So we're going to give it a minute or two before we start the actual broadcast. For those of you that listen to podcasts on iTunes, we can be found at The Conquer Worry Show. If you use Stitcher or TuneIn Radio, it's just at Conquer Worry. And you, of course, can find the resources on conquerworry.org. Let me just get everything situated here. And Tracy, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Very brave of her to agree to come on and be our first guinea pig, if you will, for a scope of a podcast. All right. Now, Tracy, have you ever been on Periscope?
I have not.
Okay.
I know someone who has it. He loves it, but I haven't gone there yet.
So I tell you, here's some of the statistics. So there are about 15 million people on Periscope who've downloaded the app, and there are about 3 million active users. So it's been growing very rapidly. It's tied into the Twitter system. So folks with nice Twitter accounts are typically able to, get some exposure using Periscope, or at least that's what we've learned, and that's why we've started the process of using Periscope. So right now we have about 7 people in
Oh, yay.
on the Periscope. Yes. Yes, especially at 7 o'clock.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
So, what's your dog's name?
Luna McGillicuddy.
Luna McGillicuddy.
Yes.
So, guys, while we're recording today, if Luna starts acting up, it's actually part of the show. And I think it makes for a little bit of comic relief.
Right.
So, Tracy, why don't you tell the folks on Periscope where you're out of?
Oh, I'm in California, Central Coast of California.
Awesome. Did you grow up there?
I not where I live now, but yes, I grew up in California. I can't get far away from the beach.
The beach and the warm weather.
Yeah, it's been too hot though. But I shouldn't complain. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, there are people in Pittsburgh that aren't feeling your pain for sure.
Not complaining. Okay.
All right, so we'll go ahead and start recording. So for those of you on Periscope, we have the podcast equipment here. We're going to record Tracy and I as though we're just doing a regular podcast, and you guys can watch. If you would like to submit a question, please either put it on Periscope or you can email me at jay@conquerworry.org. That's jay@conquerworry.org. Sometimes the questions, when they come through fairly fast, and if I'm in the middle of asking a question, we won't get it. So, Tracy, are you ready?
I am ready, Jay. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to start the recorder.
Okay.
Tracy Shawn interview, October 2015. Thanks for downloading another episode of the Conquer Worry Show. Today I have Tracy Shawn on with us. She is an award-winning author of The Grace of Crows. She also works as a freelance professional writer, and currently she lives in California. Her first novel, was about a woman struggling with anxiety and her search for the power to overcome those struggles. She's a former guest of the Conquer Worry podcast and a frequent guest blogger. Tracy, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
So for listeners, this is the first podcast where we're doing something a little bit different. We are actually broadcasting this live on Periscope. So if you're not following Conquer Worry on Periscope, our handle is predictably at Conquer Worry. Now, if you're not on Periscope, I would consider taking a look at the service. Basically, it's a live streaming platform that's integrated with Twitter. And there are some fantastic applications for this and some great folks out there where you can get some great information. But really, the first application that we saw at Conquer Worry was the ability to have a live Periscope while we recorded a podcast. So we have viewers from really, it looks like all over the world that are on Periscope watching this interview, and they can dial up their questions for Tracy as we go through. So, Tracy, to get started, why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Oh, boy. Okay. Where do I start? I I have a master's in clinical psychology and had decided before I went for the license that I was just too thin-skinned. But I appreciate that I got that degree because it helps in my writing. I'm one of those people, I never had a real clear path in my work. I've done a lot of different things. I've been a floral designer, a waitress. I can't even remember everything else I've done. But so now that I'm a middle-aged woman, I am a writer and very, very happy to be a writer. I feel, if to say a cliche, I feel like it's my calling.
Good. Now, how long have you been writing exclusively?
Well, I started getting published about 15 years ago, small articles, and then it just grew and grew from there. And I, to make a little money on the side, I do copywriting, which I really love doing. But yeah, my main career now is writing.
So, Tracy, if a 22-year-old came up to you today and said, I think I want to do what you do, and they wanted to get right into writing, how would an aspiring writer start today? Or maybe said differently, how would you do it if you were going to start over?
Oh, that's a really good question. My undergrad was in sociology, and I think if I could go back in time, I would have just studied creative writing in college, perhaps journalism, and I think that it's tough. It's a tough road to make money being an author. To even journalists aren't making as much money as they used to because there's so much free content. So my advice to a 22-year-old would be to have an open mind, to have a lot of hats on, and if that would mean copywriting and maybe ghostwriting and doing a lot, but enjoying your writing and just honing your skill as much as you can.
Do you think the undergraduate degree makes a difference for somebody? I know we're getting a little off topic here, but
it doesn't hurt. Why not? If you're right there and you're making that decision and you really want to be a writer, why not get a degree in English and perhaps media studies as well?
Well, I know you've mentioned in the past that some of the inspiration for your work has come from your past work experience that you obviously wouldn't have had if you went straight on into writing. So maybe we could talk about that in a minute, because I imagine that life experience has really impacted your writing. But first, let's talk about some of the blog posts you've had on Conquer Worry. Okay. So, the overriding theme is that reading a novel can help reduce your anxiety. And, what I found interesting, I did a podcast a couple weeks ago on Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill struggled with some mental illness. Historians kind of debate what it was. But he read, even while the Nazis were bombing London, every night for an hour. And he read a novel.
Interesting.
Right? And the idea is he thought he needed to turn his brain off. I don't know how he turned his brain off as London was being bombed. But it really falls into the theme of what you've spoken about. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on how a novel can help somebody reduce their anxiety.
I think that readers innately know that. When we wake up in the middle of the night and we can't get back to sleep, a lot of people, especially people with anxiety, I know myself, will read a book and it takes you out of yourself. So there's that. It takes you out of your own mind. But then there's something bigger than that, and the two people I would like to kind of refer to that is one being the great mythologist Joseph Campbell, who said that when we read stories, we read novels, we go on that hero's journey with the protagonist, and it gives us tools to know that when we read about other people going over their struggles, we may not tell ourselves that it's hope, but then we internalize that hope for ourselves. And then science has caught up with that. There was a study at Emory College that showed scientists who conducted it showed that when people read novels, that the brain neurons actually change and the brain chemistry changes for the better. And that change doesn't just occur right after the novel's read, but even 5 days after that. So I believe that there's a lot of stuff going on. We get out of our own mind, and it helps us understand that at the end of struggle is hope. Oftentimes you'll see that in a good novel.
Well, that's a great transition to your novel. Tell us a little bit about it and what motivated you to write The Grace of Crows.
Thank you for asking. So it was my first novel, and it was actually, of all places, I was eating lunch in a restaurant called Paradise Cafe with my friend Eve. And I was telling her about my struggles, and she said, you really should write a novel. And I thought about it because I had been writing a lot of articles, and I was in a novel writing class at the time, and I just took that and I thought, she is right. And I had always wanted to read a novel about a protagonist who going through anxiety. And I have seen other novels where people have anxiety, but it was on the side. It wasn't the main grist of the story. So I plowed ahead and did it, and I wrote the novel that I wanted to read.
Well put. I'm telling you. So tell me, if somebody today listening is struggling with anxiety and they picked up your book, what could they hope to get from it?
Well, going back to the word hope, that it's based on, even though it's a fiction story, it's based on my own knowledge of anxiety. I've had chronic and acute, and my research on it, and putting it in a fictional form so that people will know that they're not alone, even if they have very irrational fears and constant fears, and fears where they feel like they're never going to go away, and perhaps they've tried so many things and it hasn't helped them yet. So those are the main things, and that towards the end, and this is not a giveaway, is that you don't have to be perfect to overcome your fears. You don't have, you can acknowledge that you may always have anxiety, but you can maybe go from a 10 to a 2, and your life can become a lot healthier and happier, given if you get on the right journey with it.
A 10 from a 2 would be great. For some people, a 10 to a 9 would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay. Well, where could listeners pick up a copy of your book?
My book is on all the online books, the major online bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. It's available for, paperback, Kindle, Nook, and Audible, too. I put it on Audible because some people told me that they like to do housework or drive while they listen to a book. So I wanted to give a lot of people an option to get it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that Audible is becoming more and more popular. If you think about the amount of time folks spend in their car, exercising, whatever it is, and how accessible it is now with phones, it makes sense to put that type of work on Audible.
Right. And I am, it is published under a small press, Cherokee McGee, but they gave me the rights for the Audible, which was really nice of them. I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this, any listeners that are out there, my wife likes to take a pair of headphones at night and listen to novels before she goes to sleep sometimes. And it helps her kind of turn her brain off instead of watching something silly on TV. It's a good way for her just to kind of wind down at night. And again, she uses my Audible account and downloads novels. So it works. I know it does. Tracy, thanks so much for coming on this podcast, being a part of our first Periscope recording of a podcast. And I know you have a new book coming out. When you launch, will you come back on the show and tell us about it?
Of course. Thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, all right. The Periscope is still going. The podcast is over. You guys have any questions out there on Periscope? So I think where the challenge is that I can't see the questions when I'm looking at you or looking at the camera or looking at you.
Okay.
So the challenge might be to somehow see what they might be or put another camera up or something like that. But
by the way, the sound is very funny. Are you hearing me okay?
Perfectly. What does it sound like on your end?
I can hear what you're saying, but it's all when you speak, it's Staticky.
Staticky. Okay, so that's good. That means that's your internet connection and not the recording. If it was the other way around, I hope. I guess we'll find out here in a little bit. All right, Periscope land. We're going to sign off here. And thanks for watching this episode. Please share it with your friends if you think it's something that may be useful. And we will put this into a blog post that will come out in the next 24 hours on conquerworry.org. Thanks.